Hello everybody, and welcome back to Infinity Nikki. With Heaven's Reach here, and so very clearly inspired by Greco-Roman architecture, my classicist heart took hold and said, let's do a video about the columns in Infinity Nikki. Now, as a quick caveat, my personal research and expertise focuses on mythology, not architecture, so this isn't going to be very involved. That said, I hope you enjoy, and if you yourself are an architecture buff, leave your favourite feature of Heaven's Reach in the comments below. Now, onwards to our lesson. There are 5 classical orders of architecture, that is, types of columns that you'll see most frequently in Greco-Roman architecture. They are Tuscan, Doric, Ionic, Corinthian, and Composite. The Doric order dates to approximately the 7th century B.C.E. and is considered minimalistic in its design. The Ionic Order follows about a century later, in 6th century BCE, and can be easily identified by the open scroll-like top. Alternatively, you could also say it looks like a curly moustache, if that helps you remember. Now, Corinthian style dates to the 5th to 4th century BCE and can be considered the most elaborate of the Greek orders, with a very detailed top. Rome expanded the orders with the Tuscan Order, an even simpler version of the Doric, and the Composite, a fusion of Corinthian and Ionic, and both are approximately dated to the 1st century CE. Now that I have given you a very basic overview of Greco-Roman columns, let's go take a look around Miraland and see what we can find. Now, the first place I want to take you is within the Sea of Stars, specifically the Unbound War, where I found a really great example of Miraland's Tuscan columns. Now, I say Miraland because I take this as Infold being inspired by Greco-Roman architecture and then applying their own world building to this. As you can see here, I'm getting a little bit closer. I consider these Tuscan columns due to their simplicity, despite the detail at the top, because there's no fluting on the rest of the column. So to me, they're a little bit more Tuscan. They're Miraland's Tuscan columns. And actually, I think the fascinating thing here is that you'll actually see these in a couple other places. And I find it a really well done part of Infold in their world building, in that certain areas are formulating a timeline almost. I don't know how to exactly explain it, but it's great to see them developing in certain areas, certain styles of architecture, and you can identify where you are based on the columns. Sorry, this is me nerding out a little bit here. Now, the second place I'm going to take you is back over in Florawish, is the Swan Gazebo. And here you can see a more interesting style in that it is a Doric, or I would consider a Doric style because of the fluting. Again, fairly simplistic, but beautifully done in a more elaborate due to perhaps where we are, depending on when it was built in Florawish, that sort of thing. But I would consider this Miraland's Doric column. And the third place is still in Florawish, specifically over by Queen Philome's palace. There's this little gazebo there with another example of Tuscan columns, although much more simplistic than the ones you can find over by the Starless Monument and Sea of Stars, which does interest me in that most of Florawish's columns are very simplistic. They do remain in the Doric Tuscan style, so I do find it quite interesting, especially with the older places definitely having the more simplistic styles. Here again, you can see over by the monument, the old monument, the same columns that you can find in the Sea of Stars. Again, quite interesting to see what they've done with their timeline here. Heading over to Izaland, we see a distinct style shift. Over by the Colosseum, you have what I would almost call Corinthian columns, but not quite. They're very Doric in their simplicity. They're far more detailed than what we've seen previously. So I leave that up to you. Moving over to the Boneyard, we also see a distinct style change here in that the columns in the Boneyard are distinctly different from everywhere else in the rest of Miraland. I would definitely call these Corinthian columns. They are Infold's Corinthian columns specifically designed for the Boneyard. They are distinct in their style, they are highly detailed, and they definitely give off the vibes of where you are in the way that you can establish immediately where you are by seeing them due to their level of detail and distinctness from the rest of the columns. Another fun fact, if you had noticed at all, in the boneyard, the script on the walls definitely looks like it's inspired by cuneiform and Egyptian hieroglyphs. If you want me to do a video on cuneiform and things like that, do let me know, and I'd be happy to do, even though, again, it's not my expertise. It's just so fun to see these little bits of classical history that I'm interested in my fun cozy game. Now, moving on to the reason why I made this video, Heaven's Reach, my new favourite area in the game. Over here you have the most obvious depiction of composite columns that I have ever seen, and while they are very clearly in style with Izaland's columns, in that they still have the similar style to the Colosseum ones, but they are far more detailed. They have the lovely little curls at the top, which gives off Ionic. You have the detailing of the almost like leaves in for the Corinthian parts, and honestly, I saw these and I was just ecstatic. They were gorgeous. I loved it. Every single bit about Heaven's Reach as a classicist, even if I'm not into architecture or it's not my area of study, it just brings me so much joy. There is so much there that I think anybody who is an architecture buff could go on about it for hours. I mean, there's countless bits of red figure art, so if you'd like me to do a little bit on that, I'm happy to. Anyway, thank you all so much for listening to me babble about Greek architecture for almost 10 minutes, and I hope to see you all in the next video. I have plans for a couple more Infinity Nikki videos, but until then, I hope you enjoy exploring Heaven's Reach, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Bye bye.